Hey everybody, you're watching Wake Up Call Live with Christina Previtt, and joining me today is Bretty Trembly. Brett is the founder of the Trembly Law Firm located in Miami, Florida. He practices business, franchise, employment, and litigation. And he's also the founder of Get Staffed Up, a virtual staffing company. We're going to talk more about that. Welcome, Brett.
Christina, thanks so much for having me. I've seen some of the other guests on your show, and I have very big shoes to fill here. So I'm pretty honored that you would have me on. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you're going to be just fine, Brett. You're all over the internet, so you're no stranger to doing podcasts and going live in different venues. So you're kind of an expert.
Probably almost my 10th podcast, but the first Facebook Live. So there you have it.
Oh, good. I get to be the first one. Awesome. So I have been very vocal recently about going virtual. I'm taking my law firm virtual. And you and I were just talking about how, at least for me, this was one of those strange blessings that came out of COVID, was that I realized when we were all forced to go virtual, and it was uncomfortable at first, we realized that we can totally do it, and it actually makes a lot more sense. So you, having leveraged your law firm using virtual assistants, not necessarily being 100% virtual, but using virtual assistants, I want to talk to you about that experience and then talk to you about your staffing company. So when did you start using virtual assistants for your law firm?
So I wish I could say that it was 10 years ago when I was ahead of the curve and a clairvoyant and you know, me and my business partner on the staffing side, we knew what was coming, but that's not really how it happened. It was very organic. So at my law firm, we have 10 attorneys and 22 staff members. We already had a decent amount of physical space, and we were growing like crazy before I even understood, you know, that you could have virtual or offshore team members. So what happened is in late 2017, my business partner and one of my best friends, Enrique Fernandez, heard about this idea, and he basically disappeared for a few months. I always make that joke, and came back up, and he had 5 new employees, all from all over the world. And I was like, holy cow, like, you know, I need someone. So, you know, find me a marketing person, for example. So he did. And it was really great. And you're talking about, especially in the marketing area, full-time marketing person, you know, in Miami, et cetera, can cost $60,000, $70,000 plus overhead and taxes and bonuses and everything else. And you're talking about less than $20,000, you know, when you take advantage of different economies, or as they call it, economic triage or arbitrage, I should say. So that was early 2018. And, you know, to be fair, he's the founder of the company. I happen to be an early investor, and he let me in early enough that I am listed as co-founder on the website and everything else we do. My role is to spread the message, make introductions, do podcasts, talk about it. But from, you know, you don't have to start your law firm this way. It is possible to integrate as you go. And so that's what happened to me starting in early 2018. And I can tell you more about how now we kind of layer onshore and virtual employees.
Yeah, I do want to hear more about that. And I think this also goes to what I said earlier, is that when we started all working from home, there were definitely growing pains. We also didn't get any time to really plan for it. It just kind of sprung on us. But, you know, sink or swim, we swam, thankfully. And I think it's one of those things, again, where we all get so accustomed to doing things a certain way, you know, having a physical office, having people come into the office and talk to us, just having the staff all there, that there's this mental resistance to even thinking about doing something so drastically different. And I think even if you're going to have virtual assistants, a lot of times I think people have difficulty wrapping their brains around that. So Can you explain how that really works when you have a virtual assistant?
Yeah, and I think that the coronavirus sped things up by about 10 years in terms of acceptance. And we've all seen the graphs as the early adopters, and then, you know, the mid adopters, and then everyone else, and then the late stage adopters of an idea. And so you and I know some people who have already built 100% virtual firms. There was a presentation at a conference that we were both at in January, where one of our friends talked about taking his entire firm virtual, but it's still a very slow acceptance because most people are, I think, so busy in their day-to-day, just worried about, unfortunately, making payroll and cash flow, to really step back and say, how could I fundamentally change my entire firm? And like you said, we're also stuck in the mold of I need my physical space, and then I need to grow it, and I need to, have this huge firm, and they all need to be in-house. That it was such a drastic shift for everybody in March. There was a period of about, I would say, 3 weeks when, from the staffing side, that company, it was like radio silence, and everybody was so worried, and people were more worried about firing than they were hiring.
Yeah.
And then as we all started to adapt and deal with our own teams, even though maybe they're a few miles away or across the city, but now we're running a business from behind a computer, and we're having Zoom meetings, and we're figuring out that we can still serve our clients just as well. In fact, at the Trembly Law Firm, our utilization rates and efficiency rates are up a little bit. We don't have the commute, we don't have the water cooler time, we don't have the lunch breaks and everything else that gets in the way. That people started to figure out, hey, this is something that I can really take advantage of, and like it or not, you have to. I mean, adaptability is about survival, and so you can be stuck in your old ways, and you're going to get left behind pretty quickly right now.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think you're right that we just fast forwarded like 10 years.
Yeah.
Because of COVID.
Crazy.
One of those strange blessings. So when you started having virtual assistants, did you say that you got several at one time?
No, my business partner did. I started with one. That was early 2018. And now we have 3 at our firm. It's not an exclusive strategy for us, and it doesn't have to be for other people. You've got to have, in my opinion, and I can get into team building, which I really love talking about. But
go ahead.
Yeah, in order to grow a business to a certain point, you can call it the $1 million mark, if you will. Everybody likes that sort of sexy number. It's really you, and it's hustle, market, sell, and put in your energy. But then to go further than that, and there's a valley of death where you see 96% of businesses that hit that mark don't get to like the $3 million mark. It's because people are still relying on themselves, and it's their ego, and they're either afraid to give it up, or they just don't know how. To me, it becomes about the team that you surround yourself with that's going to take you to the next level, because you're allowing them to handle the things that, frankly, your clients sometimes don't want you to give up, but you need to, and you're allowing it to become a real business. But the problem with hiring all the time is, especially in certain markets, but it's true for you and I, is it becomes so expensive. Every time you want to add somebody, you're just adding to your overhead, and it can be daunting, and it can be exhausting, and you want to have this wonderful team and create a fantastic workplace, but then in the months where business is slow, it's stressful, and that really compounds on the difficulties of being an entrepreneur and a business owner. So when you're able to realize, and it goes back to mindset, have your mind open to the possibility of, there are fantastic people all over the world who would be really good employees and team members for your business, in this case, your law firm. Why don't you open to that possibility? Well, hey, all of a sudden, again, it's called economic arbitrage. You're taking advantage of, you can pay someone where they live well above the median for what they need to earn to live a very good life. I mean, throw out, a livable wage. You're talking about very comfortable wages, and it's still, compared to here, a fraction of the cost. And my argument is, we're not taking away jobs. We're actually helping the global economy, 1, and 2, the faster you grow your business by having a few employees that don't add to your overhead so much, the more then you can keep hiring people locally and domestically, and layering your employees that way, in my argument, is the way to go. Now, there are other businesses that have gone 100% virtual. That's different, because you can have domestic virtual and overseas or offshore virtual, two different concepts.
Well, I can certainly vouch for Get Staffed Up, because in full disclosure, we actually do have one about to add a second virtual assistant from Get Staffed Up. And I have to say, the dollars and cents I totally got. That made sense. But it was a mindset issue for me. Initially, I had to wrap my brain around, okay, well, this person's not going to be here. So then how can I really have the same rapport and them really be as productive as if they were sitting here with me? And you can talk more to that. You can answer that question as you did when we spoke initially. But I'm so glad that we hired Emma, the virtual assistant we hired, because she is wonderful. I'm so happy with her.
Great.
And we're about to add another one who's going to be part receptionist, part executive assistant. And I've been really happy with the services that I've gotten with Get Staffed Up. So can you answer that question though? I mean, if somebody was coming to you for the first time, like, I don't know, Brett, how's this going to work? How can I really have someone who's as productive as if they were here?
Yeah, I would love to. And first of all, I want to say thank you for those comments. It's pretty hard in a law firm to have people just say, I mean, it happens, right? But the percentage wise to say, we're so happy, thank you so much, because people don't want to wake up and go to the doctor. They don't want to wake up and go see a lawyer. They don't want to wake up and say, how much can I spend on legal fees today? So in this business, when you're dealing with, to me, it's the hardest business in the world, which is finding people really good employees. And that's the number one headache you will ever have as a business owner is your employee. And I don't mean that from a negative, because I love my team in both businesses, but it's just there's just issues, and you have human issues, and you have time off, and you've got illness, and you've got so many things to deal with, and your own team is dealing with their ups and downs. So when I hear people say, I love X, Y, and Z from Get Staffed Up, or I wouldn't replace them for anything, that's also been my experience. We've got some people we work with that I wouldn't trade for anything in the world. Just happy, bright, fun, energetic people. Just happen to be born somewhere else. But now, thanks to the internet, we're connecting them. So I don't know, maybe you can answer how you've been able to get over the mental block, respectfully, because so many people have this question is, but how do I know what they're working on all day? Well, look, if you have to know what every one of your employees is working on at all times of the day, if they're in your same office, you already have problems. Why don't you be a real manager, delegate responsibilities and duties, and then have follow-ups and check-ins and make sure, and scorecards to make sure that recurring tasks are getting done and projects are getting done. We've got our virtual team members on every morning on our morning huddles on Zoom, and we check in, and I have meetings with them throughout the week on progress, and they send us at the end of the day a daily report on everything that they worked on or they accomplished. And other than not being able to do events, like we had a socially distanced barbecue at the firm a few weeks ago that they can't participate in that, but they participated in our virtual bingo night, our virtual happy hours. They're just as big of a part of the team. And there was an earthquake in southern Mexico last week, and the whole team at our law firm was saying, hey, are so-and-so okay? Because we have team members who are down in Mexico. And it's the same care and concern, because they are absolutely part of your firm culture.
I like that virtual bingo.
Yeah.
Well, to answer your question, how did I get over it? I think, you just have to do it anyway, even though you have those reservations, like, how's this going to work? What does it look like? You just have to do it. It's really, how do you learn to be a lawyer? How do you learn how to go to court? You have to do it. So once I did it, I was so pleasantly surprised. I wouldn't say I had a negative expectation, but it worked out so much better than I had even envisioned. I was so pleased. And, we have someone who we check in with, and she's very proactive, very engaged. So I don't even feel like I need to really supervise her that closely. And she really likes what she does. So I think that probably applies even whether you've got someone who's virtual or not. I think
absolutely.
It's the same characteristics that make a good employee. So for anybody who is on the fence about it, I highly recommend it. And you know what? It's much like hiring someone. If they don't work out, you can ask them to leave. If the arrangement doesn't work out, then it doesn't work out. But you have nothing to lose by trying. And I want to ask you, because of your background, being a business attorney, what have you learned from representing other business owners about how to run a business? What are some of the bigger, let's say, mistakes that you've seen that you kind of learned on your own?
Yeah, I was just talking about this. So the first thing I learned was I can't do everything myself. I'm not Superman. I think lawyers, especially, we always feel like we're high achievers. Looking back, I don't think it was that hard to get to law school, you know. But so then we feel like we can do everything ourselves. And when I started the firm, I was my own receptionist, my own, order taker. Yeah, I was sending my own faxes, and I just couldn't figure out why I was stuck. And it's like, well, looking back, it's so simple, right? But it goes back to what you just said. You try it, and if it doesn't work, that's okay. It's not a failure. I was just terrified of failure because of mindset issues and ego issues. And I've talked very frankly about that. My first 2 years was a struggle, and it wasn't fun. And I had self-doubts, and I had always been successful at anything I had done, and I fancied myself a business guy and an entrepreneur. So why isn't my law firm just blowing up overnight? And I had to learn that there's things I don't know, and it's okay. And so going back to just trying it, do something different if you feel like you're stuck. I talked to a guy yesterday who has had a law firm 20 years, and it's still just himself, but he asked me all the right questions. I could tell if a bell finally went off for him. He's like, you know what? I'm going for this. I'm going to try new things, and I want to run with it. But so learning how to delegate, we talk about delegate your way to freedom, because you cannot do everything yourself, and you need to get things off your plate. And there's a lot of people that like doing the things you don't want to do. People think delegation is a dirty word or a negative word. Like, get out of here. There's people that want to do the things that you're willing to give them. Maybe they're just at a different stage of their lives, or like bookkeeping, for example. I don't understand it. I'll never understand how someone could like bookkeeping. It's horrible. It's terrible.
Yeah, not my thing either.
Yeah, there's people who love it. So get that off your plate. The second thing that I was just explaining this to someone the other day, I have a 2.5-year-old, and I heard him, pat, 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 running through our bedroom early in the morning. I'm like, what is he doing? And this is gonna be funny. I'm gonna bring up hot tamales. They're very, very popular where I'm from. It's a candy. So I sit up in my bed, and I hear him running back this way, and he stops in his track when I see him, and he's holding a big bag of candy that he got on the counter to grab, and he drops it, and it goes all over the floor, and he does this.
And
he turns around and he runs and hides. And I waited just laughing for like 5 minutes, and I went in the bathroom, and he was still hiding. But isn't it funny? It's like when we're little, we close our eyes, and if we cover our eyes, the danger's not there, or you can't see the danger. And I've learned that even what you would consider successful businesses from the outside, people just cover their eyes because they don't want to look at the truth. They don't want to look at their numbers. They don't want to look at what's really going on behind the business. And as I said earlier, sometimes we're just so busy trying to make it from paycheck to paycheck, even as the business owner, right? Because we have payroll, that we don't take the time, or we're too afraid to look at what's really going on. I still remember being afraid to open my banking app to see how much money we had in operating, right? So anyone that's listening that's been there, I mean, shoot, that's just a reality. And anyone that pretends like everything was great, maybe they started with money, maybe they had family money. I certainly didn't, but other than those very few lucky people, and good for them, I mean, it is what it is. But it's a reality, and we've all been there, and there's no shame in it. But the sooner you can get over covering your eyes, the sooner you can start to make informed decisions.
That's a really good analogy. And I always call it, sticking your head in the sand syndrome. Yeah. But there's it looks like a lot of different things, but that's basically what it is: avoidance and denial, right? And you made a comment earlier. You said that you were, or maybe you didn't mean yours. You said someone else, if their revenue, for it to get past like 3 million or more, they need to delegate. Can you talk about that a little bit? And if you're willing to share your revenue, please do. Or, like a range.
Yeah, well,
I know how to manage everybody. Like that's the question of the day. What's your revenue?
I know.
Ordinarily a rude question.
I know, and that's okay. It's not a rude question. I want to make sure because you and I are part of a group where people talk about the growth and the success. I think it's probably different on Facebook Live though, because another mistake is some entrepreneurial just being green behind the ears is you hear revenue and I used to think my goal, I think in 2013, when I joined the group you're talking about, I said my goal was to have revenue, total revenue of $300,000 for the firm. And I imagined myself, if that were the case, flying around the city on a helicopter, front row seats to the Miami Heat, because I had season tickets at the time, and that's what I envisioned happening, and that's what I wanted to happen. And oh my gosh, so people hear top line numbers, but what does that mean?
Yeah.
I mean, unless you're Netflix or Amazon and you're worth $1 billion, but you're still running at a deficit for 10 years or so. For business owners, it's really about what you're able to keep, what you're able to pay your own team, and building that culture. So we've passed some pretty good landmarks, but when people hear numbers and they just think that you're just
Well, let's not talk about numbers. Let's talk about, and let's kind of piggyback on what you said earlier, where you said that you kind of hit a wall at some point because you won't delegate. So, and I've asked other business owners this question: what is really the difference between, in your opinion, someone who has a business, maybe a job, let's say they have a job where you still have to be in the office every day, you can't go away for any length of time because someone has to be there to supervise and make sure that things keep going. What's the difference between that person and someone who really can leave their law firm for 30 days and it's going to continue to function smoothly and make money and you don't have to worry about it?
It's a good question, but I want to make sure that I answer it true to my feelings, because I've talked to people about this who think, well, I can just leave and never come back and the business will run without me and it'll be fine. And it doesn't work that way. That's called absentee leadership. I have a client that owns 7 McDonald's, for example, and he's very young. He's still in his late 30s. So I say very young because I'm in my late 30s. So yeah, right. He can truly leave and never come back, and his businesses are still going to be there. But what does that do to the rest of your team? It's absentee leadership. You still need to set the tone. You still need to set the vision. You still need to check in with your team and make sure that they're following their dreams and they're working hard. You still need to have events. You still need to have programs, incentives. You still are driving the vehicle, and if that, or let's call it a bus, right? If the person driving the bus is at the front and saying, all right, now what's our goal between the next 2 cities, and let's have some fun, let's come up with programs, or the person's not even on the bus, it's like, it's just 2 different types of cultures. So having a job means you're beholden and you have to be there, and you're still trading your time for money. And that's where most of people are. And then having a business that can run without you means you're okay putting people in place to run all the components of the firm so that it doesn't depend on you. But just, and leaving for 30 days or 6 days is fine, but you're still the message setter and the tone setter. I mean, you don't imagine, Steve Jobs just he founded Apple and then he just left. He was still, everyone couldn't wait to hear what he had to say because people knew he was eating, sleeping, and breathing Apple and what was coming next. And so when you think of maybe people that have reached a level and they talk about, well, you need to take time off and I'm only working this much and leave the business. Okay, but those people are also on chats late at night. They're also just digesting a ton of information, maybe in nicer places, for example, on boats, but they're still in it. And that's a difference between somebody who's in it and somebody who's checked out. And to me, those are concepts that there's a fine line there.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to think about that more. So what do you do now? What is your role or your capacity at your firm now?
So I haven't practiced actual law in probably 3.5 years. Actually, I've been saying 3 or 3.5 years for a while. So now I don't
Maybe
remember.
5 years.
So it's very rare where I'm getting into an actual legal case, but I'm running the firm. We have a managing partner who was chairman of our litigation department, brilliant legal mind. I mean, he's our #2 guy, but he's been promoted, so he's kind of running the team. His name's Christian Rodriguez. I mean, he's just phenomenal. And so he and I work very closely together on separating duties. I'm like the visionary, where I'm driving, the long-term vision, and he's working with the team mostly, but we're still both involved in strategy for big cases because that's fun. And in spreading the message of protecting business owners. Our mission at the law firm is to protect the economy one business at a time. I don't know, that could sound cheesy or like a throwaway line, but for us, it's very real. Employers like you and I, Christina, are still the backbone of our economy. We still provide more than 50% of the jobs here in the US, and we deserve to have people fighting for us because we are targets now in terms of very unfair lawsuits that I sometimes call legal extortion. So my role is to still kind of run the marketing and the vision and make sure that we have, enough money in the accounts, of course, and that we're forward looking 12 to 18 months. And, soon again, we'll be talking about expansion and how to grow.
So what is your vision for the firm?
So yeah, it's interesting. I was just telling you, we took on a lot of space, and now we're not using any of it. So we're going to reevaluate if we're going to layer in a lot more virtual type work settings. We're going to allow our attorneys, and I hope it's attractive for attorneys we're trying to recruit, that they can work from home several days per week and not have to commute and not have to, get in a full suit. And same with our other staff members. And in terms of expansion, we're centrally located in Miami, but that could change soon. Let's put it that way.
And you're not originally from Miami, right?
No, I grew up in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So
that must have been a little bit of a culture shock.
A big culture shock. I think when I drove into so I just packed up my Jeep. My dad and I drove out for law school. I had never even been to Miami, but I didn't care. I just packed up my stuff and moved. Went to Law School, and I saw more water. I always joke, there's more water when you're standing on the beach within eyesight than in the entire state of New Mexico. I mean, it's and a bit of a culture shock. I love it. It's still, my home, you could say New Mexico is, but I like to visit. I just didn't want to live there. There's just certainly not as much going on in terms of commerce and energy and movement.
Yeah. So let's go back to Get Staffed Up. What kinds of roles can you fill with the Get Staffed Up virtual assistant?
Thanks for asking. And something else I want to clarify is that Get Staffed Up is the legal employer for our employees, and it's like we're leasing them out to you. So they work for you. We only do full-time. So Emma, who you mentioned, works for you full-time, but you pay us and we pay them, and we take care of the withholding, the taxes, all of the legal implications, because different countries have funny things like the 13th month that you have to take out and then pay them extra, and all kinds of labor laws that we can comply with, and we take that burden off of you. But we do 3 areas for law firms only. We call them a marketing virtual assistant, a dynamic or an administrative virtual assistant, and a clerical virtual assistant. We're not doing, at this point, we do have a bankruptcy paralegal program that we just launched, but we're not doing attorneys, law firm administrators. It's your high turnover positions that are hard to fill because they're not really going to be enough to pay someone unless they're kind of retired and bored. You're going to have high turnover at those positions. And so, receptionist, intake, that's kind of the admin virtual assistant category that I mentioned, somebody who's on the phone. They have VoIP system, camera. You can answer the phone from anywhere in the country and do a good job with it. There's the clerical side. So, calendaring, file processing, different things like a legal assistant would do or a legal secretary. And then I mentioned the marketing virtual assistant. So a marketing virtual assistant through Get Staffed Up, for example, because I know everyone cares about price, but that's not what we hang our hat on. We hang our hat on, like you said, finding really awesome people that you love to work with. But price is always a component. So there's a company that just quoted us at the law firm I think it was 1950 a month for social media management, right? Well, for that price, even a little bit less, you can get a full-time 40-hour a week human being who's going to work just for you and understand your messaging to be all over every platform all the time, and plus have capacity to do different things. And that it's just such a new world in terms of the opportunities when you start realizing there's people out there that you can pay very well but inexpensive for you, and they can add so much more bandwidth to your firm than if you just keep contracting out companies to do one thing at a time.
That was exactly my experience. Emma has been so incredibly productive. The amount of work that she does and what I pay for it, someone else, I would have to hire an independent contractor to do all of my social media marketing.
Yep.
And at the same price, and would probably not maybe get half the amount of work.
Yeah.
And for anybody who's thinking about it, the people that I've spoken to speak perfect English. So there was no language issue. I have not experienced that.
Yeah, we get that all the time. Perfect, it's not always perfect, but I mean, almost, and people expect, and nobody kind of scoffs at a slight accent anymore. But I think people always have the image of calling up a call center, and you have, respectfully, somebody in India answering, and you can't unfortunately understand them. I'm not trying to demean anybody, but our people are out of the Philippines and Mexico and Central and South America. The accent is really good, and there's really not a language issue.
Yeah, well, I can only speak of my experience, and that was the experience that I had. That
Yeah.
I spoke really, maybe not perfect, but pretty close. There were no language issues whatsoever. I would not have had any problem with the people that I've spoken to at Get Staffed Up talking to my clients or answering the phone or conducting business for me.
Yeah, and I don't either, and I wouldn't either. Some people still call us and they say, well, all my clients are, look like this and sound like this. Can you find somebody with zero accent? It's like, well, look, maybe, but frankly, that's not maybe somebody that we want to work with anyway. So
yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, living in the melting pot of the United States, I never, really paid that much attention, but don't we encounter people with some kind of accent? I mean, even people that are born in the United States, if you go down south or other parts of the country, they have an accent. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's almost like, so what at this point,
Yeah, I agree. So we had started talking before we went live. We had started talking about maybe some trends now that a lot of people are considering going virtual. And I have been very open that we have to break our lease to do that. So we're negotiating our exit from our lease for our commercial space. Is that something that you are doing in the context of your law firm? Maybe not you personally, but your firm.
Yeah, we've dealt with several of those already. Not as many as I thought in March that would happen. You have had a handful of landlords just willingly give people breaks in order to, and I think it's smart because you're incentivizing them to try and work through this and stay where they are. But obviously the travel industry and the restaurant industry has been hit pretty hard. And, people that own the building that a restaurant will move into, they're used to that. I mean, people go belly up all the time, and there's not really a negotiation there. The restaurant owner says, I lost my, I'm leaving, do whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're helping people negotiate, giving advice. Sometimes we just field calls from our clients and say, here's what, say this, but don't get us involved yet. Because if we get involved, it's going to take a little bit longer and it's going to be more complicated. So the way we've always run the law firm is what's in the best interest of the client. It doesn't mean jumping in when we don't need to. Sometimes it's just flat out giving them advice and then hoping it works before we need to step in.
Yeah, being a divorce lawyer, I do feel sometimes lawyers complicate things.
Yeah.
So do you have any opinion about what's kind of trending right now? Because I think it's such an exciting time with, I know this sounds so warped, with not with COVID, but business trends because of COVID and everything changing. What are some of the trends that you're seeing? Are you predicting anything?
Well, no, it's a very interesting question. I was on like a Zoom kind of podcast with Mark Cuban. I wasn't like a one-on-one, right? But I was in an audience of about 500 people, and some of us got to ask questions, and somebody asked him that. I mean, he's looking at not just the vaccinations, but all the ways that medicine is going to change now, telemedicine, and the way medicine's delivered and administered. There's going to be some startups. Now, I know those startups need a lot of money, but I think the medical space is going to change more quickly than people think, and faster than the legal field. Lawyers are so slow to adapt. I mean, you just imagine you're one guy who's 65, he's got his one paralegal named Jan for 40 years and just doesn't want to change, right?
It dictates.
but yeah, so there's going to be investment opportunities and a lot of startups, and a lot of interesting things happen in the medical space and the telemedicine. I'm on the Nicholas Children's Hospital Foundation board here in Miami, and already the things that they're doing, helping kids in other countries just have, by the doctors, FaceTiming essentially, or being on Zoom and diagnosing, it's phenomenal. And of course, new technology always then opens up the door for all of your ancillary and related businesses to help support, the technology advancement. This Zoom stock, for example, has already, I think, more than doubled again since March. So, anything that's going to help people work virtually, you're going purely virtual. A lot of firms are now. There's lots of money to be made.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. It's exciting. It's actually an exciting time, and I'm having fun watching to see what businesses do.
I agree with you. And it's hard to say that when people are suffering, but just from like the 30,000, foot view of just people in the world and how it's going to move, if you could just look for the next 10 years, it's going to be crazy at all the different things that happen. So I'm with that.
I think that with the court system in New Jersey, at least, there have been significant progress in terms of the technology that they're taking advantage of, only because they had to, that was available before. And I really hope, like, for instance, having court appearances by Zoom instead of having everybody herd into the courthouse and wait for 2 hours until their name is called. And it's having a better effect, I think, on moving cases along, not having everybody waiting around, certainly for clients, because they're not paying an attorney to sit around. So I just think it's been a blessing in some ways. So I'm sorry, did you have something to add?
Because I went on a Facebook rant about this a few months ago. The amount of money that a small business has to pay an attorney, like in Miami, for example, right? To drive 30 to 45 minutes to the courthouse, sit around for 2 hours, you can get other work done, have a 5-minute hearing on a motion calendar, and then drive back. It's so ridiculously unfair and unnecessary when we could have all been in a waiting room, popped in on Zoom, had the hearing, and the client could have paid for 15 minutes instead of 2.5 hours. And everyone thinks that, these lawyers and all they want to do, well, yeah, we want to work and get paid for our time. But I would also rather have 10 clients paying for 30 minutes because it's better for them and their business. And the more their business grows, the more we're all going to benefit. So I think lawyers are going to be slow to adapt in terms of changing their offices for the large part. But the court system definitely is going to need to adapt quickly. And I think we're going to pass those benefits back down to the clients and make litigation a little more affordable. You and I, well, maybe it's different in the family law arena, and I don't have any experience there, so I don't want to, say that I do. But in the commercial arena, it's usually the party with more money that wins, and hopefully this can level the playing field a little bit more.
Well, we're always trying to find ways to make divorce less costly, because I've been practicing divorce law for 16 years and I'm still astounded at how much the average divorce costs. You'd think I would have grown comfortable with that at this point, but honestly, I think it's ridiculous how much a divorce costs. And I try to tell my clients from the beginning that it's really up to you how much you're going to spend. If you resolve things quickly, you'll spend less. There's a set amount of money, right? You should keep it for yourselves, right? Because all you're doing if you fight is you're shifting it over to me. So I think sometimes it gets lost on people.
And I don't know about in New Jersey, but I've always felt like there's a few people pushing uncontested divorces, but it hasn't really caught on, and I've never understood why. And it seems like somebody is going to figure out how to market that thing and just make a killing and help a lot of people, for example.
Well, I have some ideas. We can talk about that when we're not on camera. So I want to end with this. I'm a book nerd.
Okay.
So there have to be some business books that you absolutely live by. Are there a couple that come to mind immediately that you could share with us?
Yeah, sure. I'll share a nonfiction book I'm reading right now because I sometimes just read so many business books I forget that reading can be really fun. It's called American Dirt, and apologies to whoever recommended it to me, but they said get it, and I did. And if you want a really good read, here, this is what it looks like. I mean, I'm halfway through, and it's really phenomenal. You can see Oprah's book club. So
I've seen that, yeah.
But the best business book I read last year was called 80-20 Sales and Marketing by Perry Marshall. And if you are a little bit analytical and you don't, again, want to just cover your eyes and just hope, but you want to actually analyze what you're spending and why, it's just such a great book. And then there was another one I've always loved called The 11 Immutable Laws of Branding. And that's probably an all-timer, aside from the essentials that everybody likes to mention.
This is so funny. I think, is there a book like that addresses marketing, not branding? I know there's overlap there.
Yeah, I think there was a second book.
Do you follow Tim Ferriss?
I do, and it's funny because when we're talking about delegating your rate of freedom, and we've got these employees in other countries, people make the correlation to the 4-hour work week. I had never read that book. I'm about halfway through now. So it's not like he inspired us, but he talks a lot in his book about having people in other countries do tasks for you. So he's an interesting character, but I don't know enough about him yet.
Well, I'm a little obsessed with him right now. He has a podcast and a blog. He's been around a while, several books. And so he's an avid reader, and he's always recommending different fiction and nonfiction books. And I think those 2 books that you just mentioned are on his list. So I have a lot of reading to do.
Cool.
But I'll send you some links for Tim Ferriss because all my friends are probably tired of hearing about him at this point because I'm always talking about him.
That's okay. We all have our crushes, like we all find that person that resonates with us, and then we want to gobble up everything they're putting out there.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Brett. I feel like you are one of the people we're gobbling up lately because I don't know if it's just that you're on my radar now, but I feel like I see you everywhere, and you're really like killing it in Miami, and I like your business sense.
Well, thank you for that. I mean, it's really nice thing to say. I don't feel like I'm everywhere, and maybe that's a good thing because that means we've delegated a lot of the things that are happening, and I don't even know about it a lot of the times. And I think that's a good sign for my peace of mind and for being able to spend some time with my kids once in a while, which is always a good thing. But thank you.
Yeah, keep it going. And thank you so much for giving us your time today. And I would like for you to tell our audience, how can they reach you if they're interested in getting services from your law firm or using Get Staffed Up?
Absolutely. A lot of people in the Northeast, as you know, have business interests in Florida, and that's what we do. So tremblylaw.com, happy to help. And for the staffing side of things, getstaffedup.com or getstaffedup.com/VIP. Take you straight to a contact page, put your name and your info, and someone will reach right back out to you. Look, we're not for everyone, but that's true for any business. And so if you're looking for really good employees that are just working from behind their computer instead of in your office, and you're open to the idea, we'd love to talk to you.
Good. And I will put links to both of those things and the book recommendations in the comments. So if anybody's interested in that, they can look further. Thank you guys for watching Wake Up Call Live. Have a good day. And thanks again, Brett.
Thank you, Christina. I had a blast. Thanks so much.